Today we're going to talk about deploying a public deployment of our antivirus for Amazon S3 solution. Now there's a few things you'll need in order to get going. Number one is you'll need an AWS account, and you'll also need our CloudFormation template. Now you can always find our CloudFormation template by subscribing through AWS Marketplace to our listing, or you can find it in our help docs here on the frequently asked questions page. So once we have our CloudFormation template, we can copy that link and we can go to CloudFormation. Let's go ahead and create a stack here, enter in our CloudFormation template URL, and go to the next page. We want to name our stack something. There we go. And then there's around 5 parameters that you really need to fill out here. Everything else on this template you can leave as is. Most of these parameters that you'll need to fill out are going to relate to networking. Now let's talk about what it means to be deployed publicly. When we're talking about deploying publicly, what we mean is you're deploying using public subnets, meaning subnets that are connected to an internet gateway. Now, these subnets will allow our management console to have inbound and outbound access. That way, we're able to get to all of the different AWS services that we utilize over the open internet. We'll also be able to reach things like ClamAV signature updates and our other scanning engine signature updates. And along with that, when you use public subnets, you'll be able to utilize our cloudstoragesecApp.com domain, and you'll have a subdomain that you'll use to access your management console. Now, this is made possible because when you use public subnets in ECS, your task will have a public IP address assigned to it. Anytime the ECS service that's hosting your management console reboots, a new deployment is forced on it, we will spin up a new task and the old one will spin down. That new task will have a new public IP address assigned to it. What happens in the background is the ECS service and the task itself reach out to Lambda on our side, and we have some Lambda functions that we run, and they update the IP address for the new task that's associated with your subdomain on our cloudstoragesecApp.com domain name. So anytime a new task is spun up and you're using public subnets, you'll be able to access that console through that friendly URL that we generate for you. Now, let's get back into the CloudFormation template. Here, we'll first need to select a VPC. We can select one here, and then we'll need to select 2 subnets. Now, these subnets need to either be public or private, and they need to be in separate availability zones. So we have public 1 right here and public 2 right here. Once we've got our VPC and subnets selected, we'll also need to set a CIDR range, an initial CIDR range that will be used to determine what IP addresses can access the management console. Now, this can be anything from all zeros, so 0.0.0.0/0, or it could be a CIDR range of your VPN network, office network. You could put a /32 at the end of your home IP address if you only want that IP address to access your management console. It's entirely up to you what that CIDR range is going to be, and this will be assigned to the security group that we set up for the management console. Now, you can go into that security group later on and assign additional CIDR blocks to it as well. After we've set up everything on the networking side, the only other thing we need to set up here is going to be an email address. Now, this email address is going to be the email address where the initial invitation email will be sent that contains your username, your password, and the URL to use when signing into your management console for the first time. So let's go ahead and enter in our email address. And once we've done that, we're all set. Everything else here is entirely optional. We don't recommend changing any of the configuration around vCPU or memory. You can leave just about everything else as is. You can set buckets, a list of buckets you want to protect if you want to protect them initially after you've deployed, but we can protect buckets once we're in the management console. So let's go ahead and scroll down through this. And we can go and do next. Here, we can leave everything as is. In this case, you may or may not need tags added within your organization. We have seen some organizations that delete resources that are stood up by CloudFormation if they are not tagged properly. So you may need to add tags here. For today, we won't be. Same thing with permissions. It's entirely up to you and your organization if additional permissions details need to be added. The stack failure options we'll leave as is, and we'll go ahead and acknowledge and do next. Here we can review everything. I think it looks good, and we'll do submit. Now it'll take about 6 to 10 minutes for the deployment to finish up. We can periodically refresh this list here of events, and it will show us everything that's being created across which services. So as this is running, we'll see it create more and more events, and we'll come back to this in a bit and check on it again. Okay, we've given it a little bit of time and our events list has updated. It looks like we're at the service now. So what we can do is we can actually go to ECS and check on our ECS clusters. It looks like this cluster right here has a new service that's been stood up. If you notice, we can click into the service. We can go to the tasks section here, and we'll see that there's a task that is pending. So it's trying to spin up the task. We can hit refresh here to see the status of the task. It looks like it's running and it was started 17 seconds ago. It usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes for the task to spin up completely. If we click into it, we can also see the task running in the background, and we can see that everything is happening. The task is booting up, and these are all good signs. In here is where you would see any errors related to the task starting up. And if you're in your tasks list and you start seeing stop tasks and new tasks coming up, that is usually a bad sign, and it can point to a few areas. It could be a networking problem. It could be a permissions issue. You'll have to dig into what might be going on and see what the logs tell you. You can also reach out to support@cloudstoragesecurity.com, and we can help you out as well. If you do reach out, any information that you can include, such as the errors that you're seeing, any logs that you're noticing, would be very helpful while we help troubleshoot. So now that this task is running, we can go back to CloudFormation and keep an eye on the service. Eventually, this service will finish up, and then the CloudFormation template will go and proceed to the remaining steps that are left. All right, it looks like our CloudFormation template is complete. If we go back to ECS, we can see our task is running and everything looks like it's good to go. From here, what we can do is we can go back to CloudFormation. We can go to the output section, and you'll notice there is a console web address that's been generated. This subdomain that we give you is what I mentioned earlier using our cloudstoragesecapp.com domain name. And if we click on it and open it in a new tab, you'll get this sign-in screen. So from here, what you'll be able to do is go to your email. You'll be given a password, and we can sign in. All right, after this, you'll need to reset your password. And then let's sign in again. And here we go. So we're all set. We're signed in. You can stay connected with us by submitting your information. That way you'll be able to receive updates and information about the product. And once you're signed in, you'll get your dashboard and you'll be ready to go ahead and protect some buckets. So that's it for today. We went ahead, we deployed our solution. As you can see, it's very similar to this. We have our management console. It's using a public subnet. When we start protecting buckets in our console, we will also have agents in each region that we protect buckets in that will also use public subnets if you assign them public subnets. And that is our simple, basic deployment. Don't forget This type of deployment transacts over the open internet, so there's no VPC endpoints to transact over the AWS backbone, and anyone can access your management console. If you do not want anyone to access the management console and you only want access from specific networks, like we talked about earlier, you can set specific CIDR ranges for your console security group. If we go to our security groups, we can see the security group that we've set up for our test deployment. As you can see here, it's all zeros for inbound rules, and it's all zeros for outbound rules. We need outbound access to be able to reach the AWS services that we utilize. And if you wanted to limit this to a specific IP range to only allow access from that IP range, you can set that CIDR block here as an inbound rule for your security group. So that's it for today. Go ahead and give this a try. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And thanks so much for your time.